Can a single sentence like completely alter the physical reality of the ground you're standing on?
Oh, that's a massive question.
Right. Well, welcome back to our ongoing deep dive into the 2001 travel journals of our Japanese backpacker, Marcy. If you've been following along with us, you know we're right in the middle of this huge exploration of his journey.
Yeah, starting way up in northern Japan, down through South Korea, and now finally the Asian continent.
Exactly. And we're picking up right where we left off. So Marcy has just survived this brutally freezing, completely sleepless night train from Dalian. And he steps off into the chaotic, just monumental reality of Beijing.
The huge moment for him.
It really is.
Yeah.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to decode his analog survival tactics from back in 2001. But more importantly, we're going to uncover how a shared human narrative, just the spoken word, has this almost mystical power to rewrite the geography around us.
I love that framing. It really is a massive philosophical question to anchor this specific part of the journey. And looking at his very first day in Beijing, through that lens of 2001, it's just the perfect way to answer it.
Because it's so different from how we travel now, right?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
We are looking at an era right before the digital curtain fell over travel. By dissecting how Marcy navigates without any safety net, we actually hold up a mirror to the hyper-connected GPS-guided lives that you and I live today.
Yeah, that's so true.
And really, the overarching theme of Marcy's arrival in China is this profound concept of surrender. Like, what happens when you were forced to just entirely give up control to your environment?
I mean, the contrast is immediately staggering when you think about it. Just picture arriving at Beijing railway station today. You step off the train, you pull out your smartphone, you open a mapping app, right?
Yep, the little blue dot.
Exactly. That comforting little blue dot tethers you to reality. You type in your hotel, and this glowing route dictates your every turn. You have essentially conquered the city before you even take a single step.
Which is convenient, but you lose something.
Do. But Marcy steps out of that station in 2001 with absolutely nothing digital, no smartphone, no Google Maps. I mean, he doesn't even have a printed guidebook. All he has is a physical address for a budget youth hostel that he literally scribbled down on a piece of scrap paper back in South Korea.
So his very first act in the massive city of Beijing has to be an act of complete vulnerability. He finds this small magazine kiosk near the station, and he buys a paper map of Beijing. A map that is entirely in a language he does not read, by the way.
Oh, man, that's stressful.
Right. And he approaches a local woman working there, this auntie at the kiosk. He prints to his scribbled address, points to the map, and effectively just gestures for her to show him where he is.
He's just entirely at her mercy.
Exactly. And she takes a pen and just draws a crude circle on the paper. And that single pen mark becomes his entire universe.
It's wild to think about. So he looks at this circle, looks at where they are on the map, and he thinks, okay, it's just a few blocks away. I can totally walk this.
It looks so simple on paper.
Right. And he's exhausted. He's freezing cold. I mean, all he wants is a hot shower at this point. But this paper map creates a massive, just physically punishing illusion for him.
Because the cognitive map that Marcy holds in his head is fundamentally incompatible with the reality of Beijing. You have to remember, Marcy grew up in Sapporo, and he spent time in Tokyo.
Right, very different urban layouts.
Exactly. Japanese urban planning, for the most part, grew really organically and bottom up. It evolved around feudal foot traffic, creating these hyper-dense neighborhoods where a block is a very short, highly walkable distance. It's on a human scale.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Yeah, because Beijing's urban layout, especially around its core, was influenced heavily by Soviet-style, top-down monumental design. It is engineered deliberately to make the individual citizen feel incredibly small in the face of the state.
Wow, okay.
So the avenues are just massively wide. A single block on a map can literally stretch for miles.
So what his Sapporo-trained brain computes as, like a 10-minute stroll, turns into this grueling, never-ending trek. And he's carrying a heavy backpack, right? He's just walking and walking, feeling entirely dwarfed by the sheer brutalist scale of the city.
It's a complete shock to the system.
And it makes me think modern GPS totally shuts down this kind of geographical confusion. Our phones are practically external hard drives for our spatial awareness now. I kind of liken it to bowling lane bumpers. We never truly get lost anymore, and because of that, we never really experience the sheer physical dominance of a new environment.
That's a great analogy. And honestly, that outsourcing of our spatial awareness actually atrophies the hippocampus in our brains over time.
Yeah.
When you remove the device, the brain goes into absolute overdrive. You are forced to surrender your ego.
Because you literally can't fight the city.
Right. You cannot impose your will on the city grid. The city dictates the terms of your movement. For anyone listening today who spends their entire life curating their environment, managing schedules, and optimizing every waking minute, there is a very specific, almost therapeutic freedom in being stripped of that control.
Just being forced to surrender to the pavement.
Exactly.
Okay, but I have to challenge this romanticization for a second because I get the philosophical value of vulnerability, I really do. But let's be real, if I'm carrying a heavy pack in freezing weather, relying on a scribbled pen circle on a map, in a city of millions where I do not speak a word of the language, I don't know if I'd call that therapeutic. I think I'd call it a fast track to a panic attack.
Oh, it absolutely borders on panic.
Yeah.
But that proximity to panic is exactly what triggers this heightened state of awareness. When the safety net is gone, every stranger around you becomes a potential lifeline.
That's a good point. You can't just be a passive observer anymore.
Right. You are entirely dependent on the culture for survival. It forces a raw, completely unfiltered connection with humanity that a curated prepaid vacation simply cannot provide.
Well, and that reliance on humanity actually leads to one of the most bizarre and hilarious curveballs of his entire trip.
Yeah.
So on this exhausting death march to the hostel, he isn't totally alone. He's actually still with Wang-san.
Oh, Wang-san.
Yeah. For anyone catching up, Wang-san is this incredibly kind local Chinese man who basically adopted Marcy on the ferry from South Korea, and he guided him through the absolute nightmare of the train system.
A true guardian angel figure for this early leg of the journey.
Totally. So Marcy is speed walking towards this hostel, assuming this is finally the moment they part ways. It's this bittersweet goodbye playing out in his head, you know. But instead, Wang-sun and his entire family just casually follow Marcy right through the front doors of this grimy budget youth hostel.
Which is so funny.
Right. Marcy assumes they're just being super polite, like seeing him safely to the front desk. But then he looks over, and Wang-san is pulling out his own wallet. The family is checking into the youth hostel, too.
They had no plans.
Literally zero accommodation plan. So they just figured, hey, the lost Japanese backpacker has a circled map. Let's just crash wherever he's crashing.
It is such a brilliant example of information asymmetry in pre-internet travel. It completely flips the script on the typical travel trope, where the savvy local guides the helpless foreigner.
Yeah, exactly.
In this specific micro moment, the lost tourist actually possessed more actionable data, that physical pen circle on the paper map, than the locals who actually lived in the country. So the local family just piggybacks on the foreigner's arbitrary destination.
It's such a funny subversion of expectations.
Yeah.
But the cultural whiplash of this hostel check-in doesn't even stop there. Marcy finally gets to the front desk, and the staff are notoriously cold. Like, they are grumpy, completely unsmiling, entirely dismissive.
So terrible service.
Objectively terrible customer service. Yet, reading through his notes, Marcy is absolutely thrilled by this. And I was trying to put myself in his shoes here. He just spent weeks in South Korea, which is this hyper-polished, super competitive capitalist machine where the customer is absolutely king.
Right, the contrast is huge.
So when he hits this wall of miserable service in Beijing, is he just relieved to be experiencing something that feels, I don't know, gritty and authentic?
You've hit the nail on the head. He is experiencing the friction of two entirely different economic eras colliding in real time. In 2001, China is rapidly transitioning toward global capitalism, but this specific budget hostel is operating like a time capsule.
How so?
Well, it's a remnant of the iron rice bowl system. In that older, state-run communist economy, a job, housing, and benefits were theoretically guaranteed for life by the state. The profit motive simply did not exist for the individual worker sitting at that front desk.
So they literally have no reason to be nice to him.
Right. Exactly. The biological concept of, like, winning a customer through a competitive smile or polite subservience, it's just absent from that ecosystem. A bed is a bed. Do you want it or do you want to leave?
That makes so much sense, and he relishes it because the friction is the destination. We spend so much money in our modern lives trying to eliminate friction. We pay for premium economy, we pay for fast-track shipping, we want every interaction smoothed out and polite.
We want it entirely frictionless.
Right. But for a traveler seeking truth rather than comfort, that bad service is actually a badge of authenticity. It forces you to drop your own ego. You realize you're not a VIP. You are just a tired human asking for a piece of metal to unlock a door.
And the door he unlocks provides another profound cultural revelation. He leaves the isolation of that state-run front desk, and he steps into the forced, intense intimacy of a fifth-floor multi-bed dormitory.
Yeah, he opens the door, and the room is just packed with other Japanese backpackers. It is a microcosm of a very specific subculture. Now, I think we need to distinguish this from the Western idea of backpacking. This wasn't a bunch of kids taking a gap year to drink on a beach in Thailand,
No,
right?
not at all. To understand the gravity in that room, you have to look at the socioeconomic reality of Japan in 2001. The country was deep into what economists call the lost decade.
Right after the bubble burst.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The massive asset bubble of the 1980s had completely burst. The traditional rigid path of the corporate salaryman, which promised lifelong security, was crumbling. Yet the crushing societal expectations remained suffocatingly heavy for young people.
So they felt trapped.
Completely. For the people in this dorm room, travel wasn't a vacation of leisure. It was an escape valve. It was a rigorous, almost ascetic pilgrimage.
Ascetic is the perfect word for it. They are treating travel as a crucible to literally strip themselves down. The ambitions in this room are just wild. Marcy meets this college student whose plan is just a frantic logistical marathon.
Oh, the train guy.
Yeah. He wants to circumnavigate the entire globe, taking the Trans-Siberian Railway across Russia, cutting through Europe, and crossing the U.S., all in exactly 1 month.
It is a deliberate test of physical and mental endurance.
Pure punishment as self-discovery. But then, on the other end of the spectrum in that same room is an older traveler named Susumu. His plan is to make his way down to Australia, buy a motorcycle, and just ride around the entire outer perimeter of the Australian continent.
Which is no small feat.
It requires a staggering amount of grit to face that unforgiving landscape. And what really blew my mind in the source material is this flash forward regarding Susumu.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
This wasn't just a phase for him. Years later, sparked by the Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan, Susumu completely abandons modern society. He moves deep into the isolated mountains of Tokushima Prefecture.
Wow.
Yeah, he starts living entirely off the grid, farming, hunting wild boar, just embracing total self-sufficiency. He even ends up featured on Japanese primetime television as the ultimate mountain survivalist.
The trajectory is extreme, but honestly, the psychological foundation was already cemented in that Beijing dorm room. These individuals were fundamentally rejecting the safety and really the anesthesia of modern consumer society.
He wanted to feel something real.
Exactly. They were seeking a raw, unmediated existence. That dorm room acted as a high-pressure incubator for alternative ways of living. Sharing a bunk bed with a future off-grid survivalist reinforces that these travelers were seeking profound spiritual shifts, not just passport stamps.
Which brings us perfectly to the climax of Marcy's first day in the city. And really the answer to that massive philosophical question we posed at the very beginning of this exploration. Stripping away the ego and enduring this ascetic travel totally prepares the mind for monumental scale.
Really does.
Because Marcy teams up with one of the older Japanese travelers from the dorm, and they decide to go visit Tiananmen Square.
And this is where Marcy's specific background plays a crucial role. He is from Hokkaido, which is the northernmost island of Japan. While Hokkaido has this incredibly rich indigenous history and stunning natural landscapes, its modern urban development is relatively recent.
Right, it doesn't have the ancient history of places like Kyoto.
Exactly. It lacks the towering castles or thousand-year-old architectural ruins found in Kyoto or Nara.
So he just doesn't have a built-in everyday frame of reference for ancient monumental architecture. So he walks into the center of Tiananmen Square, and he is just dumbfounded. But he's not struck by its beauty, he is struck by the sheer empty vastness of it.
It's overwhelming.
It totally defies logic. It is just this gigantic, flat, paved void right in the center of a megacity. Initially, his brain can only process the physical reality. He is essentially looking around thinking, well, wow, this is a staggering amount of paving stone.
Just entirely empty physical space.
Exactly. But then the older traveler next to him, who kind of operates as a sort of intellectual guide here, provides a singular piece of historical context. Now, just to be clear, we are just impartially reporting the historical context provided to Marcy in the source here, not taking any political stance whatsoever.
Right, we're just looking at how it affected Marcy.
Exactly. The older man isn't making a political speech. He simply hands Marcy a raw geographical fact. He points out over the stones and says, Mao Zedong stood here and declared the independence of the People's Republic to 1,000,000 soldiers.
And that single sentence acts as a mystical tuning fork. Marcy describes experiencing an intense, immediate spiritual shift.
It's like a switch flipped.
Yes. Suddenly, he isn't looking at empty tiles anymore. His imagination kicks into violent overdrive. The empty square is instantly populated with a million phantom soldiers. He visualizes the historical scene like a massive roaring hologram superimposed directly over the empty reality in front of him.
That is just incredible.
It's the profound mechanism of human narrative. It demonstrates the almost magical power of the guide. Physical space, on its own, is completely mute. A stone is just a stone. But a piece of shared knowledge acts as a time machine. It allows a sensitive observer to tune into the specific frequency of the past. The narrative physically alters the weight and the texture of the space around you.
I mean, the stones didn't move an inch, the air didn't change temperature,
Yeah.
but the physical reality of where he was standing was completely rewritten by just a dozen words.
The source material actually shares a brilliant parallel to illustrate how objective this phenomenon is. Decades earlier, there was a famous Japanese metal artist known as Kuma-san who was traveling through Beijing.
Oh, right, I remember reading this.
Yeah, there is this anecdote where Kuma-san is riding in a car past Tiananmen Square. Without even stopping, without a guide whispering in his ear, he feels this heavy, overwhelming resonance pressing down on him.
Wow.
He looks out the window at the vast emptiness and mutters about how that specific space was once filled with a suffocating sea of people.
He literally felt the density of the history just driving past it at 50 miles an hour.
Kuma-san and Marcy, separated by years, experienced the exact same geographical haunting. When you understand the story of a space, or when you are sensitive enough to the residue of human events, the emptiness becomes deafeningly full.
That gives me chills. So what does this mean for those of you listening right now? I mean, think about the environment you navigate every single day. You walk past a brick building on your way to get a coffee. You cross a steel bridge on your commute. To your eyes, it is just brick, steel, and concrete. It is entirely empty of meaning.
Because you don't know the story.
Exactly. We walk through our own cities completely blind to the holograms of history playing out right in front of us, simply because no one has handed us the narrative key yet.
We are constantly surrounded by ghosts of the past. Our daily commutes cut right through invisible theaters of human triumph, tragedy, and revolution. But without the storyteller to tune the frequency, the doors to those theaters remain locked. We just stare at the pavement, annoyed by the traffic.
Right. It makes you want to stop and read every single faded historical plaque you ever walk past. Which circles us perfectly back to our core question today. Can a single sentence completely change the physical reality of the space you are standing in?
The answer is an undeniable, resounding yes.
It really is. For Marcy, the empty paving stones of Tiananmen Square became a living, breathing theater of history in a matter of seconds. It proves that our reality, the very ground we rely on to be fixed and concrete, is actually dictated entirely by the stories we are told.
And perhaps that is the truest value of this kind of raw analog travel. You aren't just spending money to change your physical location. You are submitting yourself to the friction of the world to collect the stories that will permanently alter how you perceive every location from then on.
I love that. And the craziest part of all this was literally just Marcy's first afternoon in Beijing. The dust hasn't even settled on his arrival. He still has the Great Wall to conquer, he has the deeper mysteries of China to navigate, and an entire uncharted Asian continent waiting to test him.
The friction, the history, the survival mechanics. They are only going to escalate from here.
Oh, definitely. And we will be picking up all those threads in our next deep dive into his journals.
I can't wait. The map is only going to get wider, and the terrain is going to get much, much more unforgiving.
It really is. But for now, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to carry with you today. Tomorrow, when you step out of your front door and walk down your usual street, the exact same sidewalk you have walked 1,000 times before, force yourself to look down at the ground. Ask yourself, what invisible, roaring, holographic history are your feet stepping on right now, just waiting for the right storyteller to turn it on?